Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am so blessed and honored to be here today with James Moss here from AbsoluteRelo. It's a wonderful Thursday here. I'm your host, Ben Cross. James, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really great. Thanks, Ben. Here in New York, where it's not quite as cold as it was last week. So yeah, all good.
It's downright balmy here in Dallas. I'll tell you what, it feels like spring. I've got my pastels out. I mean, it's nice here. It's nice. How the weather has been kind of chilly up there up until recently. What are the temps like now in Fahrenheit, preferably?
Yeah, New York is a yo-yo this time of year. I mean, you might know, and an
Yeah,
Englishman. I'm used to the rain and the wet and the
you love
drizzle.
that stuff. New York's
Yeah,
perfect for you.
and happy in that.
Happy
Uh,
in the soup. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So today, guys, get in the comments here. Hit that like button. Get in the comments. Check in with us. I want to know who you are, where you are. Get in there, get in the conversation. It always makes it better when you are in there. We're going to be talking about technology and relocation. We're going to be talking about lump sum solutions. Very controversial and polarizing topic here. We're going to talk about it. Can people properly serve transferees and programs with lump sum tools? Are there tools out there that ensure duty of care, that give a good relocation experience? We're going to dive into that with James. I think James, thinks he's got the code cracked here, so we're going to learn about that a little bit, about his company AbsoluteRelo and what caused him to kind of innovate in this way. I want to hear from you as well on that. We've also got some killer top fives and overrated, underrated that I think we're going to get to as well. So super excited about that. We got Sandra Clary checking in here. Happy Thursday. Good to be here for Absolute Love and Real. Wow, I see what you did. Wow. Thank you, Sandra. A lot of fun here. I want to ask you, James, before we get into all the tech and everything like that here, got people checking in. SF missing New York City, want to move back, excited for this program. Well, we might have some moving solutions for you. Frank is here we go. Let's go. What how did you get started in this business, James, and what led you to the point of founding Absolute Relo?
yeah, it's really a good question. I don't know anyone who sort of goes into relocation as sort of, you don't study for it at college or get a degree for it, anything like that. So how I got into it basically by being a property guy. And
Really?
a
Like a real
British,
estate person,
yeah,
like agent?
yeah. So I had a thing called a chartered surveyor, which is a big thing in professionally in the UK and internationally, and no one knows about it here in the States. It's like, why did I bother?
What does a chartered surveyor do?
It's a specialization. It's a combination between a bit of law, a bit of valuation, lots of agency, quite a lot of building technology.
Okay.
Um, but in the relocation world, where it's really relevant is with leases and structuring and negotiation and that sort of stuff. Um,
Okay. So
so,
you're
so
doing
it's
that.
yeah, so it's really handy for that, and also a US broker in New York and Connecticut. So again, we sort of have crossover there. So it's perfect for like a sort of global international model because most countries sort of feed a bit off the US and the UK, bit of France perhaps. Um, so how did I get into technology into Absolute? I ran a very successful relocation company in the UK for many years, and we were like the European Relocation Company of the Year in 2012 and the runners up
Wow.
in 2013. So we sort of know our stuff. I sold that business, which was great.
Congratulations. That's
Uh,
always the best
yeah,
time
it
in a
was a
business
happy
owner's life.
happy moment. Not enough to go and buy penthouses in New York, but it's okay. Um, and I always thought that really the way technology was moving, particularly the way people use mobile phones, is really the way forward. And I've always liked relocation. I think it's a great business, and it brings in different aspects of people moving and property and all sorts of stuff. But it's a little old fashioned. um,
Hmm.
is the truth.
Yeah, it is a
And,
little old fashioned.
people live, move off sort of one of these, right?
Yeah. It's
Um,
so funny you talk in the time frame you're talking about too, like 2012, mid-teens, right? I remember back then somebody telling me, they said, if you're not working at a mobile first company, meaning not only do they have a robust website, but it's not being developed mobile first, and that's really their domain and where they're living and doing most of their business, most of their work, get out of that company because their strategy is not built for, it's not future proofed. So it's really interesting that you're talking about this mobile first thing, because I keenly remember that.
well, you're spot on. I mean, the thing about it is communication. And that's really what the driver is. I mean, you've got kids. I guess I've got kids. You
Too
see
many.
any, I assume you got kids. Anyway, it doesn't really matter if you do or you don't. It's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
I got two
Uh,
boys.
but
I think still,
every
I don't know, I haven't been home in 24 hours. I might only have one left. I don't know, they've been animals.
anyway. But everyone uses phones for everything as a communication device. The other thing that's it's a sort of natural go-to place in my view. Um, and I think one of the other things that we've certainly discovered whilst we've been developing the apps and the online stuff, particularly recently, um, is that it's non-generational, which is really interesting.
Yeah, what do you mean by non-generational?
It
What does
means
that mean?
everyone uses it.
Everyone's
Anyone who
doing it.
can type or
Yeah.
text and is relocating, if you like, is a potential customer.
I like that you pointed that out, because for so long we've been bifurcating and saying, "Oh, this generation doesn't do it that way. This generation doesn't do it that way." And I think we finally are at a point now. We've probably been at this point for probably the last 5 years, where everyone is mobile savvy and can navigate, an iPad and a phone. As long as the font's big enough, right? We're all on the mobile device. Speaking of which, here we got some people checking in. David Yakum from Coleman. What's up, David? Maury Stevens. Been a while, but I'm here. What's up, Maury? How you doing? Pamela Stevenson from Government Census. What's going on, Pam? Let's see. Ruby. What's up, Ruby from ReloQuest? Adrian Grimes from Glomo HQ. Good to see you, Adrian. Jason Hall, USI Law. What's going on, Jay? Good to see you too. So tell me about it. So now we're talking about mobile. So then how does that tie into Absolute Relo?
Sorry, how does that tie into?
Tie into Absolute Relo.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we started. We basically our basic premise was to keep it simple, to bring in basic technology. In other words, not to sort of reinvent the wheel, which to use a terrible cliche, but to take what was out there and then put our own bespoke software and approach, integrate it into the best technology out there using really expert coders and people because I'm not a coder, but I have a
Yeah.
great instinct for how people work and how they move and how they relocate and stuff. And we've basically have integrated that into mobile phone technology. At the same time, we also have a fantastic back end. Okay, because you need a really good back end to run all this stuff.
I've
So
heard that about you, James, to be honest with
yeah.
you. I've heard that over wine at some of these
Have you?
conferences. But I
That's
got
a
to
bit,
ask you,
bit
am I
annoying.
am I allowed to I'm going to ask you a tough question here. And I want the audience getting in here. And Janet Turner from Central Florida checking in from DN Van Lines. What's up, Janet? Scott Chapman. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you, Scott. I want to ask you, and I want to ask the audience out here too to get involved in this conversation as we're talking about, this mobile technology for relocation. I got to ask you, the thing that always stuck out to me, James, is what made you think that you could compete with Google, right? I mean, because what gave you the unmitigated gall and audacity to say I'm going to take on Google and I'm gonna create a better option than that.
Well, my intention was not to compete with Google. In fact, I think Google are a fantastic company, but to basically take the technology that these guys are developing. and again integrating. So without getting too deep into what we do, we use different databases, APIs, and stuff like that, which come from various different sources. So Google is one of those sources, of course, and there are other more specialized ones out there. Mapping technology is quite a good example. So yeah, it's not good for you. Goodness knows. I mean, we would be a squash fly by now. But
Well, and I say that
great.
because a transferee, I think, gets, 5,000, 10,000, 15, $20,000, check for a lump sum, right? And instinctively, like we do with everything else in our life, we go to the internet. And when I say by go to the internet, is we go to the search bar. And the search bar, might be in Safari if it's on Apple, but a lot of times it's Google. And we just type in movers near me or apartments near me or whatever, right? And we get these searches back. And I just find it incredibly difficult for us as a managed relocation industry to compete against that name recognition, and habit in the consumer, in the consumer's mind, as well as frankly the field of options that you're given and the various price points and just all the unknowns out there. I mean, how do we compete as a managed relocation industry against the internet at large?
It's a brilliant question, and the short answer is you can't, and you'd be crazy to try and do so. But what you can do is you can adapt to the changing environment, and you can adapt to the way that people live and work and use technology. Um, the analogy I've used in the past, it might be a little unfair, but it's quite a good analogy. It's like the relocation industry sector, $32 billion sector, is like a massive oil tanker going through the Suez Canal. And at some point, something happens and it's got to turn around and adjust and maybe go back the other way. And that is actually quite a big job, as we all know. And sometimes oil tankers get stuck and they can't quite get where they need to be as quickly as they want to be.
Yeah, that was a disaster. Yeah, I
Uh,
remember that.
yeah, so that was sort of entertaining. But on a
Yeah,
serious
kind of right.
note,
It was like watching a car try to like do a 3-point turn in a street that was too
yeah,
narrow, and it
yeah,
just couldn't
exactly.
back it. I was like some out of an
And
Austin Powers movie or something.
there's a tractor there at the front trying to dig the bow out, which was like David and Goliath or Minnow sort of thing. And the caption in one of the British tabloid newspapers, which are sort of junky newspapers, was "We need a bigger tractor." And
Mhm.
anyway, it's a little bit. Anyway, the point is this: is that you have to be light, you have to be agile, you have to be fast. You don't have all the kit that a big tanker has. You haven't got the scale, the manpower, the investment, and all the rest of it. So you have to be nimble, and you have to think quick, and you have to think light. When you're dealing with technology, one of the great things about technology is becoming more and more affordable.
Mm.
So if I was doing what I'm doing now, say 10 years ago, it would be a hell of a lot more expensive.
So you're saying the is that because of the availability of good coders and how easy it is to now find people offshore to I mean, what drives that affordability?
Yeah, well, a lot, coding is a good example. As I say, I'm not a coder, but I spend a lot of my time with coders. And what's really interesting is how much sort of cutting and pasting there is, how much integration there is with communication platforms, for example, and mapping platforms. And you can, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, again, these are terribly cliched analogies, but you're sort of taking bits from here and bits from there, but they're all integrating and connecting together. And then what you've got to do, the clever thing is really the sort of the glue, the mortar that binds them all the intricacies that actually pulls them together and makes them work in a structured, viable, efficient way. And that is the knack. And
Yeah.
that is the knack. And
Super interesting. I
yeah.
want to let's ask some folks here that are checking in because we got some pretty esteemed colleagues here. Stacey Ann, Stephanie Gibbons from U.S. Census Bureau checking in. What's up? It's good to see you there. Jack Jampel, hello, gentlemen. What's up, Jack? little gentleman Jack in the comments there. That's a nice booze.
Good guy.
Jack, I got to ask you, Jack, thanks for joining. And everyone that's in the comments right now, what are your thoughts on mobile technology for lump sum transferees, and just managed relocation populations? What are your thoughts on where we are as an industry with this? Is it needed? Is it underserved? Is it overserved? What are the gaps? What are the opportunities? What are you seeing out there that you like? Really curious right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Jack. We've got Doris, also brilliant here. What's up, Doris? Good to see you there. Corporate housing expert checking in. We got Annie Ream checking in from Glomo HQ. What's up, Annie? Hey, Annie, how's it going? Annie's over there. It's good to see you. Annie says it's great weather outside. Yeah, she's been tanning all afternoon. Good to see you, Annie. Now I want to know. What do you think out there? We got Scott Chapman. We got some really brilliant people. Janet Turner here, Ruby with Relocation. What are y'all thinking out there about where we are at right now in serving lump sum populations as well as full managed? And James, while they're thinking about that question and formulating their brilliant answers here, does your company, does Absolute Reload, I mean, do you cater to the lump sum population, or do you cater to the fully managed or the cap? I mean, really, what's that niche, and where do you see the product market fit?
Well, we see various markets, and we operate in various markets. Lump sum, fascinating. I mean, it keeps becoming more and more dominant in the corporate sector, and every survey you read, with more and more lump sums coming into play.
What do you think's
Um,
driving that, James?
I I think it's the pressure on the corporates in a number of different areas. I think taxation is a big one, particularly on international. I mean, it's a bit easier domestically in the States and elsewhere, but when you start moving people internationally, you're into pay equalization, taxation, benefits of kind, that sort of stuff. It becomes a bit of a nightmare. Um, so that's the first point. It's obviously well catered for in the industry, but it's a really difficult one for HR to deal with. I think the second point is people like to keep a bit of money in their pocket. So if someone comes along and gives you, yeah, say $20,000 and go, there you go, Ben.
Should I put my
20,
Venmo? Can I put my Venmo on the screen
yeah,
right now? Somebody wants to give me $20,000
20
at
grand.
D Ben Cross on Venmo.
Yeah, and get yourself from Dallas to New York, and we'll see you in 3 weeks' time on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. What I think would, not necessarily you, but what usually sort of things that tends to happen is that the first thing is the money goes in your pocket. You think, great, it's fantastic. The second thing you think, maybe I'll get out of the bar, have a drink with a mate, maybe a
Yeah.
cup of coffee with
The
someone.
first thing is it goes in my wife's pocket, and then
Oh,
she
there you go.
breaks me off at 20 to go have a drink with my mate at the pub.
There you
That's
go.
kind of the way the money, the cash flows in my house. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And then eventually your conscience might prick you a little bit. And you might go, you know what? I actually don't know how to quite get to you. I got to move all my stuff. I got to be there on time. This and that. I could do with a bit of help, but I don't really want to spend much money on it. And I'm certainly not going to go out and pay 3.5, 4, 5 grand to a fancy relocation company. It may be very good, but as you were saying earlier, why don't I do it myself on the internet?
Yeah.
The answer is because you haven't got the time. You can do some of it. You can do a lot of it. But what you miss is that area of expertise to fast track it for you in an affordable,
Yeah. And
cost effective
and you
manner.
don't really know what you don't know either, right?
Uh,
I mean, we're not, transferees aren't professional, relocation professionals. I mean, gosh, I know relocation professionals that move and they don't even know how to do it. Mike Faleo was helping a friend of mine. They shout out to Mike over here. Happy to see Love and Reload back on there. Mike, I had a friend. I'm not going to name the friend. The friend was moving. There was a change of career, and they needed to ship their car, and they called Mike, and their reload company wasn't giving them what they needed. And even us as relocation experts, dare I say experts, we're still at a loss for what to do, especially if given a tight budget like a lump sum. So yeah, I totally get it. Let's see what we got here in the comments. chime in here. I want to know what your thoughts are around these lump sums, around these kind of self-managed relocations. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts around what the gaps are in the market? Is it possible to really serve these customers? I really want to know your thoughts. We got questions coming in here. James, let's answer a question, okay? Let's see here. Captain Jack says, "How does your lump sum apps address tax gross up and reporting to companies' payroll and year-end true ups?"
I love a question like that
It's a very
because that,
sophisticated question. I expect nothing
yeah,
less from Jack.
I love that. It's a great question by Jack. The answer is we don't really have to go there.
Really?
What we do is the lump sum is given to the assignee. Okay, it's the assignee there. They then sort that out with their own tax advisors and stuff like that. In terms of the company's payroll, the company knows what they've paid. They've put it into the bank account and all that sort of stuff. They track all of that. We really don't have to go in there. We're not into grossing up tax and tax allowances and stuff like that. We're doing the basics. We're just making it very straightforward and very easy and efficient and user friendly for people to get from A to B. We're not getting bogged down in this stuff. It's a really big area. It's not the area we work in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've got thoughts on this too, but I want to hear your thoughts. If you're watching this right now, get in the comments. We've got some really cool questions coming in from some really smart people. Oh, we've got Anandita checking in from USI Law. What's up, Anandita? Founding managing partner of USI Law. Love Anandita. It's so good to have you here, my friend. Yeah, so we're talking about technology for lump sum relocations. We got James Moss, founder and CEO of AbsoluteRelo, here with us. Let's see here. Jack Jampel says lump sum many times is seen as a cost savings. Not saying I support it, just my opinion. Are we seeing this really employed as a cost savings? Are there any other reasons to look at lump sum other than cost savings, or is cost saving really 80%, 90% of the driver on the choice to have a lump sum program?
Yeah, I think it's mixed. I mean, many of your viewers and the participants on this show will be much more knowledgeable than I am. I mean, I've worked with some really big companies in my career, and I've worked with some specialists, many specialists in taxation and so on. And one thing I can say is one size does not fit all. Everyone does it differently. Um, the one of the factors is that in resident countries, the laws and the tax allowances and those treatment of those tax allowances change locally. So you're not dealing with a universality, if you like, of tax. In America, it's a bit easier. Well, I say a bit easier. In America, you've got what, 360 million people is population here, working off a universal tax system. So, and a huge one at that.
Well, universal
Um,
federal tax, but I've heard some people argue that moving between states in the United States is almost
good
like
point.
moving between countries in
Exactly.
Europe.
Exactly. You've got the state. Everyone misunderstands the states, by the way, outside of America. So
Oh,
friends
we
of
don't
mine,
understand the states either.
yeah,
I mean, is Puerto
it's
Rico a state? We don't even know. We have
yeah.
commonwealths like
There you
Massachusetts. I
go.
mean, what? I don't,
There you go. So the states doesn't work from the top down. It doesn't work from like the federal government down. It actually works from the bottom up, which is
hmm.
your point entirely. So you've got to start at the bottom, even on tax and money. Particularly, but you've got to work your way up.
It's like a Drake
And
song. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Very interesting. Sandra Clary's got a question here. Get in the comments, hit that like button. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on how to serve lump sum populations? Is it possible to give them a good experience? What do we need to give them a good experience? I want to know. Sandra Clary says the expertise and the social proof when the options seem overwhelming and plenteous. Sandra with the words plenteous. And suddenly one realizes they don't know how to be confident that they can/will select services companies that come through for them. Wow, interesting. Is this a problem that you're seeking to solve?
I think service. to the individual, to the people moving, is really what it's all about on the ground. It's one of the reasons that set up and run Absolute, because we're about on the ground. The other service provider, of course, or service provider is the company, and they have, so it's your, it's your sort of Venn diagram esque type of model is what you've got going on here. My job and the job of my Relo advisors and support team is to provide brilliant service on the ground, easily, friendly, and very cost effectively. But just giving people what they want, okay? They only pay for what they need. All right, we don't.
How is that different from maybe a traditional relocation
We've
solution?
dumped all the whistles and bells, when there was one example of sort of what kind of got over enthusiasm, might be a good way of putting it.
Over
Um,
enthusiasm.
yeah, so there was one particular assignee I remember particular who was really a bit fed up, and they were relocating, well, not through us, I hasten to add. But anyway, the point is they had 27 points of contact.
Gee.
27 points of contact. 27 people, various stages, were reaching out to them to help them. Okay. And the science said, he said, what do these people do? What do they do? Why do I need all this stuff?
Right.
It's confusing. Who am I supposed to talk to? But I don't need it.
Yeah.
And it's over, I say, over enthusiasm. It's also basically a poor model. Everyone, the thing about the relocation world, um, and take it as a criticism or objective, whatever they want to take it as, but it's very tiered. It's very hierarchical. So you've got, for example, the big RMCs at the top, and then you've got the DSPs, and everyone interested, and then you go all the way down. And what I found, my experience, was that the guys who did all the work were actually the DSPs, relocation consultants on the ground. The guys who got dumped on the most were the small DSP relocation consultants on the ground. And the guys who really struggled to get paid were the small relocation companies, DSPs on the ground. And everyone else above them was taking a cut.
Hmm.
Okay, and that's all right. It's fair. It's just the way it's been done since, I guess, the 17th century, perhaps. But it's not a great model. It doesn't help the client. It's top heavy. We're back to the oil tanker in the Suez Canal, and
Big
I,
Relo is the
I
oil
don't like
tanker.
it.
Big
you know, I'm,
Relo's the
I'm,
oil tanker, and the
yeah,
lack of volume currently is the Suez Canal.
yeah,
It feels like, and it's stuck
yeah.
in there. It's interesting. It's interesting you bring that up. Uh, you're talking about the 27 points of contact that this in this example that you're using. Do you think a single point of contact is better, because that has inherent flaws as well?
Well, it's a good question actually, and I think the answer is you do need specialization in certain areas, like the taxing that's come up a number of times, and in this chat we're having. Um, but I think the short answer is yes. It's actually better to have one point of contact for the assignee where they can filter everything through and get that done. I think that works best. However, I would say that there are some areas which are really complicated, and tax is probably the biggest one. Visas,
Yeah,
immigration is another
immigration as
big
well.
one. You have to be licensed. In most countries, you have to be licensed to do that. You don't necessarily have to be an attorney, but it helps, I guess, sometimes if you are. So there are a couple of carve outs where you don't want a well-trained but non-technical relocation consultant advisor handling that. I mean, they can sort of be a letterbox, but I'm not sure that's really the best way of doing that. So I think there are, some, important exceptions to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I've worked with single point of contact model RMCs, and I've worked with um, whatever. And I think that there was a shift towards single point of contact in the I'd say probably 10 years ago, and maybe 20 years ago, 20 years ago. But I've seen it shift away. So there was firms that were doing it that have kind of started to come away from it over the last, 5 years, just because they recognized, I think, that they were bearing the burden of increased coordination
Hmm.
from a headcount and a cost standpoint, and it wasn't necessarily adding more value. It was creating more phone calls. Not necessarily more phone calls to the transferee, but now they were in the middle of a telephone game. They became a switchboard operator. And I think that they just saw that being unsustainable, especially as we all know. I mean, it's becoming more and more, everything is becoming more and more competitive. It's why we see so much consolidation in our industry and other industries, right? And so they're having to engineer cost out of the service delivery model. And I think the single point of contact model is because it's more of a concierge model, right? Where this one
Yeah.
person is going to do it all for you and then kind of serve it up to you. And if you have an issue, they're going to go figure it out for you. But they don't necessarily have the answer. They're just going to go take the message and relay it. So it's really interesting. I'd love to know what people think about this whole idea of single point of contact, if it's still viable, um, if it's something you're seeing out there. We have people checking in here. Um, sandra's saying lump sums. She's seeing more of it. Pressure to get firm cost figures with less tolerance for deviation. Interesting. For budgeting purposes, doesn't mean it's a good experience for the EE, but she is seeing it quite a bit for budgeting, where they could take the lump sum dollar times the number of people equal the total spend. I totally see that. They're trying to make they're trying to add some predictability to the cost, for the budget standpoint. I see that a lot.
I,
Go
I
ahead,
think
James.
no, I think one thing I would say is that relocation services tend to be a mix. Okay, what I'm doing, I don't expect or anticipate is going to replace major relocation services. Okay, but I think it's a really good support adjunct and option for certain types of assignees. Okay, we don't do as Absolute a red carpet, white glove service to, like, managing directors of banks, partners of law firms. My other business does that, Curzon. Okay, we do that in London and New York. But Absolute doesn't do that. Absolute works. The lump summers tend to be more people like trainees, new graduates, interns, also managers or people who are starting their careers or maybe into their careers, but their company has not quite yet decided that they are going to roll out the red carpet to these guys for the rest of their days.
Well,
Okay.
and who's to say really that population is asking for that? They're not. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're asking for it. I don't know that they need it. If frankly their life is a little bit more simplified, I think, than some other folks. Where if you're not a homeowner, if you don't have a family, if you don't have
Yeah.
a partner with you, if you don't have, there's a lot of things if you don't haves, out there that really tends to simplify the transaction. And you see those folks start to really value speed of service and solutions, and simplicity over what we used to think of as quality, right? And the
Yeah.
comprehensiveness of it all.
Yeah.
We
Sorry, I can give you a good example of
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Just very quickly, we worked for one company in particular that didn't actually provide any relocation services directly to their to their employee. And they're a big global media company. Okay, but what they did do is they had a fantastic intranet. And what they did on the intranet is they put all the sort of contacts, people they approve of, companies they approve, to support their people moving if they wanted support. So they had somewhere to go. They were supporting their assignees internally in the company. We were on that intranet, and they would contact us and say, hey, we're moving from here to there. Could we have a chat, type of thing?
Yeah,
And
really
that's just
interesting.
another way of slicing and dicing that.
Yeah, get in the comments right now. I want to hear your thoughts here. William Joyce, what's up, Will? It's good to see you. I was having the assembly line versus move Sherpa debate earlier this week. with a friend of mine. Describe for me this Move Sherpa. I feel like that's interesting name there. Very interesting. Jackson Taylor, it's viable. He's talking about lump sums here. Many times we work with the lump sum transferees to provide an excellent relocation to the transferring employee that works below their budget. Sometimes it's a challenge, but it is viable. It depends on your relocation provider. Let me ask you this. So Jackson works at a moving and storage company, an eponymous company, I believe. Uh, why would somebody call Absolute Relo and James when maybe they could call Jackson directly at the mover? What is the value there? Because at one point you are kind of a disintermediation strategy, but you're also an intermediary.
Yeah, sorry, my internet cut out there for a second. Can you
Yeah, no
just
problem.
repeat that
I'll read.
question?
Yeah,
Sorry
I'll
about it.
restate the question. So Jackson was saying, he works with lump sum transferees. He works at a moving company, and I was saying, why would a transferee want to call James Moss at Absolute Relo instead of maybe calling a moving company directly? Yours is a disintermediation strategy where you're removing layers of cost, like that an RMC, a typical big Relo RMC might have,
That's
and
right.
yet you are also an intermediary at the same time. So why would someone want to call you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the answer is that we just do the basics. Okay, so we find people somewhere to live. The only three things people need: they need to find somewhere to live, they need to get their stuff over, which comes right back to your question, and they need the legal right, if it's international, to live and work where they're going. Okay, for shipping and for immigration, we have partners. And if someone comes to us, and they do, and they say, "You want help here and there, uh, can you help us with shipping?" We have partners who we are very happy to refer to. Immigration, likewise, we have a terrific immigration partner, global immigration partner. Um, so yeah, so we don't necessarily physically do everything ourselves, but we have a very good, high quality network of partners, which is, it's not big at the moment, but it's growing. That's how we do that.
Really interesting. Let's see here. Will's just saying that the Move Sherpa is having an expert guide you through the whole process rather than multiple points of contact doing each different part. Let me ask you this, James. In your model, do you have a relocation consultant per se, a Sherpa, or do you allow? Is it more of a marketplace where people pick their provider and they go directly to them through individuals?
We run a larger team, growing team, of what we call relo advisors, so relocation consultants, and they tend to come from two backgrounds. They either are experienced relocation consultants, so there are loads of, there are loads of freelancers out there. There are not necessarily loads of good freelancers out there, but there are plenty of freelancers
So
out
these
there.
are loads of freelancers, not freeloaders.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, the
I want to be
freeloaders
clear
wouldn't get,
about that. I want to be
they
clear.
wouldn't they wouldn't get through anyway.
Okay.
So what we do is we select those guys. The other group that we recruit from quite strongly is from the real estate backgrounds.
Mhm.
And it's really, really good because they're very knowledgeable about the local markets, which is really important. Also, they're used to very high service levels. Um, I mean, the service levels, particularly in the States, which I come across all the time and work with, are really, really good. Um, and so you're dealing with very capable people. We also train them up. Okay, so we have our own uh, way of doing that. We have our own trainers. We have our own sort of standards.
Mm.
So we get everybody to the right level. Okay, before we sort of let them loose on clients.
Interesting. Okay, so I got some questions about this and what you're seeing because you're probably a pretty good aggregator of data for us for these lump sum populations. What percentage would you say of the folks that you see are domestic transferees, like in the U.S., let's say within the U.S., versus international assignees?
There, they're different animals, but the concept doesn't change actually. So US, what you do get in the US is you get more knowledge base about often where they're going. Because if you're living in America, you've got you've got things like a common language. It's a good one to start with. You have common laws. Caveat to that, state carve-outs, which you mentioned earlier on. But you've got sort of common news, your media. You've got big choice of sort of who you go to get your news, be it TV, Facebook, whatever. I mean, whatever your cup of tea is. When you're going internationally, it's a different animal. Language is a big issue. Culture is a really big issue. Even if you speak the same language, doesn't mean your culture's the same.
Mhm.
So, Americans and Brits, that's actually a pretty friendly example.
Well, it is friendly,
Scandinavia,
but I've heard statistics or somebody's site. We don't actually require people to do research on this show. They can say whatever they want. But I heard somebody on this show say that the number one failed assignment lane was US to UK because people assumed that they were going to be it was going to be
yeah,
smooth. It was going to be easy.
yeah,
I mean, we speak the same
yeah.
language, right? We're both
I'm
English
delighted you
speakers.
mentioned that. It's such a good example. It's such a good example. I've moved so many Americans to the
Yeah,
UK,
and then we get
and
over there and they
and
just make
vice
fun of
versa,
us the whole
vice
time and
versa.
the food's no good. So then we end up coming back, we're crying about it, and the football's weird and we don't understand what's happening to us. We
Exactly,
thought it was gonna be easy.
exactly. But it shouldn't be that way because we'll speak the same language. So how could we
Should be
possibly
easy.
not understand each other?
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is
it's
great.
a problem. The easiest relocations is where it's the culture and language is totally different. So people, for example, I spoke to a number of relocators went to have been to Japan, and they said it was great because
Wow.
we were all in the same sort of group.
Yeah,
All we'd start together. None of us could speak the language, read the road signs, watch the telly, anything like that. We had a fantastic relocation. Uh,
that's great. That's funny. That's great. Let's get in. Let's play some games here. Let's have some fun here. Okay. Let's mix things up a little bit here. Appreciate you, Sandra, here. Appreciate everybody today. Hit that like button. This is great. I love learning about new stuff here. We haven't done this in a while, but we're gonna bring top five back. We're gonna do a top five and an underrated overrated. So first, let's get into our top five here. Okay. Top five tech hubs outside of San Francisco. All right. Top five tech hubs outside of San Francisco. We're actually going to start with number five. Number five, you have Dallas at five. Really?
well, I couldn't resist.
Yeah. What are you just are you
uh,
just are you just kissing up to me over here, James? Do you really believe that?
just giving you a bit of welly, as we say.
A bit of
Um,
welly.
bit of welly, yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
gosh.
actually, I
Sounds
know
dirty.
Dallas quite well. Like I've been there quite a bit. I have good friends down there, and yeah, I mean it's no more techy or less techy than anywhere else, but it's good. I mean the investment down in Dallas is phenomenal. Texas is I consider Texas a separate country almost to
We
the
we
rest of
reserve we
America.
reserve the right to secede, and we have the means to do
Yeah,
it.
there you
Gosh darn
go.
it!
There you go.
Okay, we got the natural resources.
You
Okay, we
guys
got
are
enough
great.
guns for a small country. We can do what we need to do now.
Yeah,
We got our own
yeah,
power grid already. I mean, gosh, it doesn't mean any of it works, but we got it. Is all I'm saying. It's like having a generator. I don't know if there's gas in it, but we got it. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Texas is great. Yeah,
yeah,
Dallas
Texas
is
is
fun.
fun. And in fact, I saw something. Elon Musk is looking at moving Tesla to
Ah,
Texas, which is interesting. He already bought a town down in South Texas, down by the border, down by Brownsville, I think it is. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Elon Musk is going to start his quest for worldwide domination in Texas. Apparently, should be interesting.
watch out.
Buckle up. Yeah, number four.
Yeah, Amsterdam. Amsterdam is a phenomenal tech base.
Really?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's the Dutch are terrific. It's beautifully so well located for the EU and Europe as well as obviously for UK and even the States on the right side of Europe, if you like. The tech skill sets down there, the education is fantastic. Um, The language is great. I mean, I've yet to meet a Dutch person who's not just terrific in English. I mean, much better than we are. Uh, so yeah, and it's a wonderful hub for the whole of Europe, and it's excellent, absolutely excellent.
All right, all right. You know, that's an interesting choice. I haven't heard that one before. Um, Good to know. Number three.
Dubai,
Number
yeah,
yeah, number three, aka number one sometimes. Dubai. Tell us about Dubai. How did Dubai make the
yeah.
list? Never heard of
Well,
Dubai.
to Dubai, which I go to a lot. I've been doing business in the Middle East for I don't know 2 decades now. Um, is phenomenal again on tech. I mean, for the Middle East, okay, and the region, you really cannot beat it. Okay, the investment that goes in, the reach that it has there. I work with several entrepreneurs and investors in that part of the world, and their hunger to succeed and to be on the world stage is great. It's absolutely great. It's developing very fast,
Yeah.
very fast. The other thing is you get a lot of skill sets going in from India
Mm.
from there because
Hey,
it's sort of just sort of hop across if you like.
yeah, the best
Uh,
talent hub probably
it's
in
yeah,
the world is India right now.
it's very
Uh
good. India's fantastic.
let's look at number two here. A little bit of welly, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know this term. I don't know what this means, this term, but
Well, yeah. Well, London, yeah, they are. We, by the way, we all sort of mop in together over there, which often surprises people over here. But we're all quite friendly, you know. We even marry each other from time to time.
nice.
So, but London as a tech hub is again, it's really super well established. Silicon Roundabout is in just on the edge of the city, which
Silicon Roundabout. That's what it's called. The
it's a
Silicon Roundabout.
roundabout. Yeah,
Not a
it's sort of,
valley. It's not a whole valley. It's just a traffic junction.
yeah. It's a
Just
big
an
old. It's been there for
intersection.
the old graveyards around there and all sorts of things. When I was a commercial property agent, this is going back to the 80s, I guess, the late 80s. You couldn't give the stuff away. It was so run. It was like oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. The Wireless Canal
Okay.
over
You
here.
know,
I mean,
you
it
it's
was like
interesting because
poison.
when I go out to San Francisco and I drive by, Facebook's or Meta's headquarters, one hacker away, I think it is. It's in the middle of a marshland. So
Yeah.
kind of to the same point that you're making there about the Silicon Roundabout and the graveyards. Really interesting. Number one.
Yeah, well, New York, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm based here. But the tech community in New York is really terrific. It's very extensive. It's very deep. It's incredibly active. So I have a couple team members, coders based here, who are just terrific. And what I like is that it's on the doorstep. The other thing that's great about New York is that being on the East Coast, it's really easy to work with UK and Europe. Um, so it's a great amount, and of course, it's a fantastic investment hub. Might not be quite the scale of San Francisco quite yet, but it's got to be close to it. I would have thought.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And Jack Jampel's back. It should be noted. Additionally, it should also be noted, and Aditya brings a great point up. Tech hubs of
Yeah,
Hyderabad and Bangalore.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
Anadita was just over there for an incredible I think it was the Relays and
yeah.
conference over there. And Anadita, feel free to share some information you might have picked up over there. But James, what do you think about Hyderabad and Bangalore?
I think they're terrific. I know Bangalore codings and the tech side there quite well, and the whole the education and skill set in India is phenomenal. I think they're about to overtake China's world's largest population. They may have done so. But Bangalore has been a hub for ages. Hyderabad, I don't know as well, to be honest with you. But India as a skill set, and they export their skills. They used to. I've worked for relocated. It. before we sort of really got into all the sort of video conferencing and all the rest of it, loads. I mean, hundreds and hundred. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Um, Many hundreds of Indian, very skilled tech people around Europe and into the UK for very big tech companies and some smaller tech companies as well. They're phenomenal. They're great. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, Anadita is just came back from 2 seminars in both cities. They're amazing. Anadita, I can't wait to catch up on that. Also, Anadita, can't wait to see you in DC February 13th. We're doing an immigration symposium at USI Law headquarters there, where you're going to be sharing some of that data I hear that you
Yeah.
presented out in India and in Shanghai a couple 2 weeks ago. So can't wait to hear that as well. USI Law always at the cutting edge of immigration news and trends. All right, James, I like the top 5. I got a couple bones to pick there, but I'm not gonna make an issue of it, okay? Conspicuously absent, India, but also I think Dallas, I appreciate you threw me in. This wasn't a barbecue challenge, but you still included Dallas in the top 5, which I appreciate that. I respect it. Some may argue Austin's above us, but you know what? Forget Austin. That's where the kids live. Grow up and move to Dallas, okay? All right. Let's get into the overrated, underrated, the moment we've all been waiting for. James, our favorite game on the show, overrated, underrated. Do you know how to play?
I would say it's underrated.
the show,
Okay.
the show, and the
Uh,
show,
I
and the game itself
I
is
love it.
underrated.
I watch loads of
Fantastic.
when I call American football, my sons
Yeah.
look at me and go, "What are you talking about?"
All right.
And
Well,
it's football.
let's get into it. Okay. Let's get it.
Okay.
Overrated, underrated. The first category for overrated, underrated is real estate agents.
Overrated.
Wow, overrated. This is interesting because there's been a lot of litigation and lawsuits lately that are saying that are probably agreeing that real estate agents are overrated because now buyers agent commissions are now subject to negotiation and maybe even non-payment at this point. James, why do you say overrated?
Well, because I'm anticipating your next question, which is
Oh,
going to be the same question to which I'm going to answer
all
underrated.
right then.
Okay. So
Wow, you should
so
host the show, James. Okay,
I know. So I've
you're
leveled the
better
playing
than me
field.
at this. Okay,
So okay. So to answer just quick snapshot on that one. Um, they're so varied. Okay, and I'm going to come back to your fee thing in a sec because it's a really interesting point. It's so varied. The good ones are fantastic. Okay. But big doesn't necessarily mean good. I often find smaller agents locally are much better than the massive behemoths out there. Um, who some of them are excellent. I mean, I've I know a number of them quite well, but a lot of them are just so overrated, and some really sharp practices go on, and
mm,
you've got to steer your way through that. Um, I come from a property background. I like to think I'm very professional and very ethical in the way I run my businesses with integrity. But I tell you, you see a lot of tricks, sort of double hands going into the till twice, that type of thing. So you've really got to know who you're dealing with. Um, and it's tough. It's tough. Often comes down to the individual. Okay.
okay,
So, and particularly in America, because America is really interesting in that estate agents basically work for themselves. They're sort of self-employed businesses. They attach to these big firms, but they basically, they eat what they kill. They're not paid a salary and so
right,
on.
yeah,
In the UK, internationally, that tends not to be the model. So you've really got to navigate that. And you've also got to ask yourself, how good are they? How well do they know their stuff? I can tell you in the UK, you don't have to be licensed to be an estate agent, for example.
mm,
I mean, I am. I mean, I'm sort of desperately overly qualified in that regard, but I come also from a commercial property background, so it's slightly
right,
different animal.
right,
So you've got to know, and just because agents are licensed here in the States, again, you've got to suss them out. But the the knowledge level, it tends to be better in the States, I find.
Hmm.
Having said that, the good guys, I use it generically, elsewhere are tend to be very, very good. But you've got to suss it out. You've got to understand to help your clients how it works
Yeah, makes
and where
sense.
the elephant traps are. So
Makes
there you go.
sense.
Yeah.
Definitely don't want to step in an elephant trap. All right. Number three, relocation consultants. Overrated, underrated.
Underrated, so badly underrated. Um, I tell you the problem. The problem is everyone thinks they can do it.
Hmm.
That's the biggest problem that relocation consultants face. Is everyone thinks, oh, I can do that. It's actually a really tough job. It's a really tough job.
What do you think the
And to
hardest
do it,
part is?
it's you've got to do so many things. You've got to be a people manager. You've got to be you've got to be a logistics expert. You've got to be certainly very knowledgeable in property. You've got to be able to manage, coordinate, guide. You've also have to bring cultural aspects into place. You have to be able to read people very well, okay, because everyone's a bit different. Um, that's why you have to train to a high standard, a good common denominator standard level. It's really, really
Hmm,
important. So you have consistency.
that's a
But
good
the
point.
most problem is, yeah, a lot of people say, oh, I'll do that, and they'll be useless at it.
Really good point. Let's get into something a little more closer to home for everybody here. Depending on where you're sitting. Overrated, underrated. BBC TV World News in the US.
Yeah, I thought you liked that one. It's very, very personal. It used to be great, and now it's terrible.
Really?
And
What
yeah,
changed?
it's so just because the BBC is a terrific organisation. But no, it's just gone so downhill. It just doesn't cover half the stuff. It's it's cut back. It's just a shame. So I have to go elsewhere for my use. Luckily, there are plenty of good options.
You know what I've gotten into lately recently is the local news, the cable news. So, no, and I want to be clear, not the CNN, not the Fox News, not the, but the like the stuff that comes for free with like Spectrum. Like for us, it's like Spectrum One or whatever. Like you turn
Yeah,
on your cable box
yeah,
and whatever that news channel from. I know in New York, I think New York One. I think it's like
yeah.
that local news. To me, that's the best news. It's locally oriented. It's about what's happening in your community. It's not overly political. I mean, because politics are important, I guess, but they're really not impacting the person like on a personal level, right? We like to think that they're much more important, I think, than they are. We get very up in arms around, I'd rather know if they're rebuilding the highway and the exit down by my house is closed, than frankly what's happening, sometimes in the Senate, and that's just me. Maybe people disagree
Yeah.
with that, but tell me the county fair is coming next weekend, and that's gonna have a higher impact to my quality of life in the near term. So I kind of with you on that. Let me go. Let's skip ahead here because gosh, Super Bowl's around the corner. The Chiefs, overrated or underrated?
Oh, I personally think underrated, and I love an underdog. Um,
Wow.
now I was thinking
It's
about
it's
this,
it's
and
crazy to
there's
call the Chiefs an underdog, though. I mean, what is this,
yeah,
four Super Bowls or something like that for them?
yeah. No, I know a lot of people probably see it the other way. I mean, you can look at a glass two ways, can't you, of water?
Yeah,
But no, I love an underdog. They keep coming back. I mean, they had a terrible season
they
most of the
did.
season. Everyone wrote them off, and Mahomes, wasn't going to be the savior that he's always been. And then bang, and
Yep.
they get through the playoffs, and they get there, and I think it's great.
Yeah. All right. So give me a Super Bowl prediction, and if you're watching right now, get in the comments. I want a Super Bowl prediction. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Chiefs or Niners? James, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Well, I think the Chiefs will keep the roll going. It's tough for me
Wow.
because I think they're both fantastic teams. I love the 49ers. I think I don't know why, but they've always been great. And again, they're a bit of an underdog with Purdy. But yeah, I think the Chiefs are going for it. I love watching their game, the way they play. Yeah, they're not, they're not as good all round as they used to be. But I think if you've got the guts, I think there's a lot to be said for guts and getting there and not giving up and really, a bit of self-belief, frankly. I think
Yeah.
they've got that.
And the experience, and who the better quarterback is. I mean, again, Purdy's an excellent quarterback, he's an NFL MVP, candidate. But gosh, I mean, the Chiefs have the pedigree. They're definitely missing Tyreek Hill. He's they lack kind of that big play maker on offense, that deep threat, that the Niners kind of have with Debo Samuel and Brandon
So,
Ayuk. I think it's gonna be interesting. The Niners are a 2-point favorite right now over the
mm,
Chiefs. So Vegas likes this game real close. It should be a lot of fun to watch. I would have highly preferred to see the Cowboys in the Super
yeah,
Bowl, or
I
maybe
could get
the
that.
Detroit Lions,
Yeah, yeah,
even as an
yeah,
underdog.
yeah,
But it should
mm,
be a good game between two high quality teams.
yeah.
We got oh wow, look at everybody's coming in here. What is your Super Bowl prediction? We're gonna wrap with this right now. We're overtime. Maria says 49ers, go Brock. You got to love Mr. Irrelevant. The last pick in the draft, and now he's in the Super Bowl. The guy's been a backup every single place he's played, high school, college, and now the pros.
Yeah.
He's taken the starting role in every single situation. He's never given it back. You got to love the guy. Good family man, godly man. You got to love Brock Purdy out there. Tandra Chester says, go Chiefs. All right, Tandra. Frengus says, "Go Niners." Oh, and I like the hearts there.
Yeah,
Look at you. You got
that's lovely. I love it.
look at and Anadita says 49ers. Let's
Yeah,
go. Wow, we
oh,
got 3 Niners, 1 Chiefs. Very, very good. And it sounds like the James is going Chiefs here. Gosh, I'm gonna root for the Chiefs, but if I'm putting money down, I'm putting it on the Niners.
yeah, yeah. Well, they probably look stronger on paper, but
Yeah.
read check out the one thing I just say. I know we're over time, but follow Jason Gay in the Wall Street Journal. He's a sports economist. You probably know he's absolutely excellent. The Journal's been getting it wrong for the last 2 or 3 weeks actually.
All the
So
predictions,
yeah, it's
NFL
really
predictions.
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
super interesting. This has been a lot of fun. James Moss, founder, CEO, Absolute Relo. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for being here with us. Also, hit that like button one more time. Get in the comments. Can't wait to see you next week. Oh, should we tease them? We got a big announcement coming on Monday. We have an exclusive. I'm not even supposed to say this right now. We have an exclusive interview with the new CEO of WERC on Monday. I'm going to leave it there. See you, y'all. See you next week. Take care.